All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Fresh Takes, where I interview speakers, business people. These people are going to share some fresh information on you and how to get better at the art and the business of public speaking. So today, all the way from Minnesota, I've got Mr. James Robilotta. And I met this gentleman in DC years ago at a leadership conference. And I sit in the audience, and this guy comes out on stage. He's got a bow tie, he's got glasses, he's got a beard, and then he starts rapping on stage. And I was like, where'd that come from? But then the piece after was to see the crowd and the engagement of just everybody wanted to touch him because he wasn't just up there trying to entertain people. He's actually just dropping knowledge and, just filling people's brains with, information they could apply. So ladies and gentlemen, you got to put your hands together as I got Mr. James Robilotta today. James, how are you doing?
My guy, Frank, so pumped to be kicking it with you, dude.
All right.
I was happy to connect with you so many years ago and that we've stayed friends, brother. I know we haven't seen each other since, but that's speaker life for you.
That's speaker life. So I'm hoping to meet into you again now. I didn't tell everybody everything about you. You are, an author. You are, I guess you can call yourself a comic. You're a coach. You're a professional speaker, and then you're celebrating 1 year of marriage. So that's the big bold piece. But anytime I have guests on the show, I'm like, that's the intro. That's the stuff that people see on stage. That makes us have like the whole smoke and mirrors, glam and glitz. But who are you really? Just tell everybody who is James?
Who is James? Great question, brother. I'm still trying to figure it out myself. I'm born and raised in New York, brother. So a proud New Yorker. Just moved out here to Minneapolis because of love. Love will do that to you. It's weird. But I know you know. And yeah, man, I got into the speaker game in 2011. And it was a side hustle for a little while I worked in higher education, and 2 years later decided to make it a full-time thing because I ran out of vacation days and I had no choice, and so it was a good problem to have, and so really good problem to have, and so I've been full-time since 2013, and predominantly in the college market, but in the last 3 years I've been drifting over into the corporate market as well. And I do some one-on-one coaching with people too. And I just started a new arm of the business. I'm starting to do retreats where I invite a group of people to a cool location, and we spend either a day or a couple of days together helping people get unstuck. And so, but yeah, that's me, man. I like you said, I also do comedy. Been doing improv comedy since 2004, and bring a lot of that to the stage as well. It's a rush and a thrill, and keeps me off the streets. So
there you go. Yes. So yeah, let's go touch on that improv piece. I've seen you got, the improv troupe where you go to New York, and what you've traveled around the world doing the whole improv piece. And I know when I have coached speakers, they go, hey, how can I get better? And I tell them, hey, you know what, go take an improv class. So I know this is one of the things that you coach, explain to people, like, why does improv make you a better speaker on stage?
Sure. Yeah, I think everybody in the world should take an improv class. That may be a little biased there, but that's fine. But I think everybody should take an improv class because improv, it really serves as a communication lubricant. Like those rules of improv, when you apply them to normal everyday conversations, when you apply them to difficult conversations, when you apply them to public speaking, to the work that you do in meetings, your conversations immediately get better. They get smoother, your stress levels drop, and it's really powerful because improv is a team sport, right? I did stand-up for a really long time, and stand-up is a rush. There is no high like a stand-up high, but there is no low like a stand-up low. Whereas improv, you walk on that stage and you have four friends on the stage with you, and you have no idea what you're going to create, but you know you're going to do it together, so you feel somehow safe. And it's really, it's a lot of fun. It just makes conversations flow way smoother. I know for me, especially as a speaker, an audience interruption, a fire drill going off, a cell phone, anything, those are no longer distractions or things that take me away. Instead, they're things that I add and bring into the presentation. And just to show the audience one more way, like, I got it. Mm-hmm. And I think it's a cool swagger move.
Yeah, I mean, I admire people like yourself because I had some friends who were comics, and they challenged me to come on to the open mic night. I'm like, hey, come and do the open mic. And the one piece is, I know you use slides, but I've told so many speakers, I'm like, hey, you don't know if the tech's going to go out. So I've had tech go out, lights go out, mic go out. But when you do this piece of, whether it be improv or comedy, I mean, you are just bearing your soul. break down, but it helps you adjust quickly to these, like you said, audience members yelling stuff out to you.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure, dude. Yeah, it's a rush. And it's just a good technique. It also helps you with, we do a lot of workshops and things like that too, you and I, and improv gives you a lot of games and a lot of different tools that are a little bit different than standard workshop things that still hit those same points of teamwork, innovation, creativity, even leadership and supervision. So it also just gives you more tools in the tool belt.
Oh, it does. And then, as you said, you've got this improv comedy background, but you said you started, working at a college and doing leadership development there, and then you became the speaker. But the funny piece is, if you can share everybody listening or watching this, and see, this is what I've learned is it's funny where the college students, because I started in the college market, they see people like us all the time. But then when you transition into the corporate market, they're so used to HR people just read bullet points. When you come in, playing these games, being engaging, cracking the joke, I told people, it seems like the corporate market actually eats up what we do more than the college market.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I agree, man. And I think it's interesting since you and I have both worked in the college market so much, there's a lot of things that we assume everybody has done, and a lot of games that we think are like, I'm going to do this old thing here, whatever, everybody's done it. But they're like, minds are blown because they just haven't done the personal development and professional development. Just looks so different compared to all the trainings that we have sat through and or done as higher education professionals. They're not doing that kind of work in the corporate environment. And so some of those rudimentary things are mind-blowing to them. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's crazy. So now how'd you transition? Like you said, you wanted to be the speaker like your whole life if people go on your website and read the bio. But what made you say, because I know you love working, because you're still in the college market working with students, you just do it on a global basis now, but what made you say, hey, you know what, I'm going to leave my college position to jump out to run my own business?
Yeah, so I started doing a whole bunch of presentations at conferences as a student leader, then as a grad, then as a full-time professional. And I was just going to these conferences, presenting ideas, just to share ideas, right? That's what you do at a conference. And, and so, I wasn't thinking anything of it. I also did it because I'm a little bit of an attention whore. And I was like, well, I like to run a room, right? So I was like, I got an idea, I can share it and I get attention, like we're all winning. And so then somebody came up to me after one of those sessions and asked me how much I charged. And I looked around the room. I said, sir, with all due respect, who the hell are you talking to? Because I didn't think I wasn't doing it for that reason, right? I wasn't out there to be a speaker, trying to be a speaker. I was just out there to share knowledge and make people laugh. And so it was a really cool opportunity for me to be like, maybe I got a little something here. Yeah. And so I spoke for free for a long time. Because I think speaking for free is important for a little while. I don't think you ever really speak for free. I think you speak for testimonials, you speak for video footage, you speak for, right, like those other methods of payment. So I did that for like 2 years because I didn't think my story was good enough. I didn't think I was good enough. Yeah. All the speakers I had seen before then, for the most part, had been through lives that were not at all what I had been through, right? Like I'm very white. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm white. I'm privileged. I grew up with more than enough, right? Like, I'm privileged to the max. And so all the other stories that I was hearing from motivational speakers are, I killed my friend in this drunk driving accident. I lost my leg in Nam. I grew up with nothing, and my family had nothing, and it was a broken home, and I rose up to this great thing. And so I was like, no one's going to want to pay some privileged white boy to come to a college campus and cry about when he was homesick. Turns out, big market, Frank. And so that's when I started charging and kind of let it grow from there.
Yeah. And be honest with people here. I'm like, I was working at a college and I got my first paid speaking deal, and I'm like, I might make some money on the side. And all of a sudden the check showed up, and I told people it's not all about the check, but I looked at the check and it's like, this is about 2/3 of what I'm making a month. I was like, maybe I need to consider this. So, when you got your first payment, did that just blow your mind?
So the first payment I got was $250. So, and the answer is still yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
It doesn't, just the fact that somebody felt that what I did was deserving of compensation. I think one of the weirdest parts of this business is valuing yourself.
Oh yeah.
It's something that we're not trained to do. No one's ever told you like, hey, you've done X, Y, and Z, so an hour of your life is worth this much time. And that's by far the part of this business that makes me the most self-conscious. And so, yeah, but when I got that first check, like I said, it was only $250.
Yep.
And that was
I'm
great.
rich.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Yeah. Yeah. We going out to eat.
Right. And actually, you know what, as you make that comment, maybe I should transition to this one for people who are watching and listening is, as you said, you do get that first check and you go out to eat. And I know for me, like early on, I had my partner, Roger, we were speaking together, we were going out, speaking on stage, and we get like that check. And like you said, we got a $250 check, $500 check. And we're like, okay, let's go get steak. And then years later, we realized, wait a second, that steak dinner just ate up the whole check.
Yeah.
So you got to learn the budget. But for the people who think, oh man, because I've seen this one, people like, oh, you know what, I want to go talk to the colleges. You know, I've got what they need. And I always will tell people, like, it's not about what the students need, it's about what they want. Can you explain, one is the perks of being in the college market speaking, but also quote the truth about the market, because it's not as easy as some of these speakers think it is.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think some of the perks of the college market are, I mean, I just love being around college students, right? I think in high school, you learn who you are. In college, you learn why you are who you are. And it's a really fun time to get to work with somebody when they're trying to figure out their why, right? Of like, why does this matter to me? Why do I believe that? Why do I think that? Why do I want to do that? I love being with people in those moments, and asking them to go deeper, right? Dig deeper into something. Not to show up with a myriad of advice and be like, let me take you to the promised land. It's like, no, let me help you explore.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things that a lot of people find difficult in the college market also, is that a lot of people are like, I've been there, let me go back and teach them what I know so I can shorten their learning curve and let me help. I think a lot of times we need to recognize that sometimes giving advice is lazy. And sometimes you got to ask a few more questions before you really start passing out the advice. And so I think a lot of people expect to just show up at the college on a college campus and people being like, oh my God, thank you. You're so wise. You've been through so much. But if your delivery is not there, if your relatability is not there, then that audience is going to eat you alive.
Oh yeah. I mean, I get a lot of people, I was like, you know, I'll tell them, like college students aren't looking for another parent, and they're not looking for another professor to lecture them when you go in. And I know you and I are friends with Jermaine Davis, but like Jermaine Davis was saying this when he goes, he's like, guess what? He's like, if you're not engaging with the students and you're not giving them something, you know, they're looking for and being real, he's like, guess what? He's like, they will walk out on you. And he said he had been to a college where he watched the students walk out on the speaker.
Yes. Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, they got other things to do.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, it's that world right now where it's like, if you can't, you know, engage them, it's like, boom. So speaking of that, like, I know you do different engagement pieces on stage. I'm like, what do you do to get, you know, especially like in a college audience, what do you do to get their attention in that first 10 seconds to make them know like who you are and like, hey, you need to stay?
Yeah, for sure. I think the most important thing for any speaker is a relatable delivery, relatable to whoever your audience is. If you're not being relatable, if that audience can't see themselves in you, then they're probably going to have a hard time connecting with you the entire time. And so how are you meeting the students where they're at, or whatever the audience is, where they are at?
Yeah.
And so for me, I know that most students walking into a room are coming in like, all right, I got to go to this damn lecture. It's mandatory. I'm getting points for Greek week, or I'm getting, I'm supposed to show up because someone from my organization needed to be here so we could be an organization on this campus, or whatever. And so a lot of those students that are coming into the room are there because they have to be. And so sometimes moving the needle looks like me taking you from, this was some dumb mandatory program, to, hey, this wasn't that bad. Yeah. And so the initial way to do that is humor, I've found. It's how are you coming in there, making them laugh, and also how are you coming in there and just kind of, I myself start with vulnerability too. Like I bear a little weird thing about myself, and we kind of start going in of like, hey, how human beings, I also am a human being, and so let's all talk to each other like human beings. Exactly.
So speaking of human beings, because like you said, there's just some parts about this industry just kind of blow our mind. Two-part question. When you first started, you know, being that professional speaker, were you booking on your own? Because I know now you've got an agent. So now an agent makes me like, oh, I got an agent. You know, it's like I'm big time now. But explain to people the difference between, you know, what does the agent do, and then, you know, why did you decide to go with an agent?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, two very viable markets or more viable directions to go in. There are people who are absolutely killing it in both directions, and so it's more like what works for you. I personally chose to go the agent route because in the beginning, when I signed with Campus Speak, which is one of the bigger college agencies, when I signed with them, I knew that I was just some bearded guy, right, who thought he was funny, who happened to be named James, but was with Campus Speak, and that meant something to people. And now over the years, that has transitioned to where now I am James, still bearded, but now I'm James who happens to be with Campus Speak. And so for me, Campus Speak believed in me before I did. And so that helped. But I would also not want to disillusion people to saying like, once you sign with an agent, all of a sudden your calendar is going to be full, because that is not the case at all. Every speaker has a different relationship with their agency, and that agency is good at booking different markets. Like their agencies themselves have specialties, and so I've been hustling since day one with my agency, and I still get a lot of my bookings. I still get a lot of my bookings. It's nice to have somebody that handles all that paperwork and stuff like that. But there are other people who speak in different types of audiences where the agency is they're getting them a higher percentage of their gigs. But in the leadership market, there's so many leadership speakers, right? I think on the Campus Speak roster, there's 50 to 60 speakers, and I would say probably 40 of which could talk about leadership, right? And so you got to differentiate. And so the way I did that was through kind of my hustle and just my style. And so, so that's what I would say. It's the reason why I went them. I'm ultimately going to be, I don't know when you're publishing this, but I'm going to be leaving that agency as well, and going on my own. And that's really exciting. And I'm not leaving that agency bitter. I would still say to a new speaker trying to get into the game, Campus Speak is a really great option. Because they're going to teach you about this business, right? They do trainings, they do all that kind of stuff, and they got the connections to get you in the door in some of these conferences.
Yeah, I mean, and that's just the evolution for all of us, because I had an agency too, and we had the same deal. We had a retreat for all of our speakers, and they go, okay, who does leadership? And like 18 out of the 20 hands go up. And what people don't understand, like the agencies do help set you up for work, but once again, the agency is, feeding multiple mouths. So if somebody wants this date on October 12th, to bring in a speaker and go, okay, is Frank book, is James book? Like, yeah, then there's somebody else that they can go feed, and the agency still takes care of themselves. So the same thing, like when I left, my agency, for people listening to this, is at some point you just want to take a little bit more ownership in what you do, because, the agencies are nice, but I don't know if you've ever had one of these deals. I had it where I had, I think it was 12 or 13 dates in like 15 days in 7 states. I mean, they will book you. But the same point too is, you got to do your work-life balance too.
Yeah, but sure. Be in control of your own calendar.
Yep. So this one actually will be out here right before Thanksgiving. So for people, I don't know when the date is.
That's fine. That's all good, man.
So we'll
about 5 days before it becomes public. So
there you go. So I'll make it go public afterwards, and I'll just tell people, okay, you got to go connect with James and just go straight to his website, and that's how you book him now. But the one thing too, I was telling you earlier before we jumped on was, I become your social media fanboy. But the one thing I really like, and you can tell me about this, and I tell people those perks about speaking, is I know that it looks like you and your wife love to travel. And, I do learn some of the speaking piece from you, but you travel around the world, and like, seems like every time you drop something in, like you're just, whether it be a photo of a building, like you're actually doing the history and teaching people, through the travel. It's not this show like, hey, look, I'm traveling. There's actually an education process. I'm like, is that intentional?
Is it intentional? I guess kind of. Yeah. I mean, I think there's an innate educator inside of me, and so I think that's always been there. And so so a little bit. I think for me, when I travel, I often ask the people questions of like, when you travel, does your ideal vacation look like a Corona commercial? where it's you, the beach, a beer, right, and the crashing of the waves? Or does it look like you in some random family's house, getting to know them and interacting with the locals and finding the hole-in-wall spots, right? Like, how immersive do you like to get? And when I travel, it's for experience. Of like trying to get in there, like learning as much as I can about wherever I am. And then I love having the opportunity to share people's stories, just to a different part of the world that hasn't yet experienced it. Excuse me. And so, so I think some of it is intentional, but it's also, I'm not out there looking for lessons to be like, oh, what can I teach the people about? Right? Like, I think I would also say that there are some speakers on social media that force it. Yeah. And I really hope that is not me. If so, this is your opportunity to call me out. But like, there's a speaker that'll stub their toe and be like, hey, everybody, I just stubbed my toe, and it made me think about how don't we stub our toe a little bit every day, but we just got to keep walking, Like, it's just like not everything needs to be a lesson.
Yeah, no, man, I feel like when I watch your piece, like I'm watching the Travel Channel. I mean, it's because I mean, like you're showing your meals, you're showing what you're going on, but for people listening to this, like, it's not even just all about, hey, I'm having a good meal or I'm traveling. Like, I've seen some history in there. I've seen points about social justice. I've seen points, obviously, Clemson. I haven't seen a $2 bill yet on any of your stuff. But I think it showcases exactly, who you are. Again, that's what everybody watching is like James is just real. I'm like on stage, off stage, but it just shows like, hey, this is a part of my life. I like to travel. This is what I like to do. I've seen you like backstage getting ready to go for the comedy show, but I just want to let you know, I appreciate that, because I watch it and going like, okay, he's not, as you said, some of these other speakers, people out there, he's not trying to be fake. He's just going, hey, I found this interesting. I'm going to share it with you.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, my topic on stage is authenticity and vulnerability. So if I'm not doing that off stage too, then I'm a giant hypocrite. Mm-hmm. It's interesting. There's some balance with, like, I curse a lot in life. Yeah. I've done a pretty good job so far on this podcast. I'm really proud of myself. I curse a lot in life. And so what does that look like? Because there are people who are going to book you that are going to find you on LinkedIn. And I posted a video on LinkedIn recently where I dropped the F-bomb. And I try not to drop the F-bomb in a lot of my videos. I think the F-bomb is kind of like the pinnacle of like, a little too far. And there was just a couple of people commented like, did you just use the F-bomb on LinkedIn? And I was like, yeah. And so, it's a fantastic balance.
Yeah, and that's that piece too. As you said, I get a lot of people like, "Oh, what should I stay on stage?" And I was like, "It's like, you just gotta be authentically you." And like, I was like, I don't necessarily curse on stage. But if that's part of your thing, we're not going up there to be vulgar. But if it's just the case of, hey, this is who you are and you talk, then you gotta be real on stage. So since we're talking about that piece too, is, like you said, you don't want to be that hypocrite. What do you do off stage? Because I always talk to any of the speakers on here and talk about, it's like, what, we got to be great on stage, but what do you do off stage? Because I used to book speakers, and I'd hear my students or companies like, oh, you know what, they're great on stage, but they're just a pain in the ass to deal with off stage. So obviously I've watched you, and like you keep getting return visits to places. You engage with people afterwards. I've seen you marching in parades, eating food. People are like, oh, James is coming back. Well, when I say eating food, and like I saw you some sorority conference, and like there's just like a whole big deal, but they invited you out to dinner. So I'm like, if they're inviting you out to dinner, then he's doing something right. So what are you doing off stage to just keep people engaged?
I think, first of all, being kind, which just, I don't know, like, I'm not, that speech isn't about you, right? Mm-hmm. The speech is about the audience. You benefit from it, and that's awesome. But there are some speakers that I think take themselves way too seriously. And if at any point you think that you are above your audience or above the people that booked you, people are going to be able to smell that, and they're not going to want to hang out with you, right? Mm-hmm. There's a fine line between confident and cocky. And I think there are some people who get in their own way a lot. And so I think that's the first thing, is just, talking to people about being human beings. I think that I take a genuine interest in everybody that I meet. That's easier for me to do. And I think that's my, I'll call it extroverted privilege, right? Of the fact that I'm genuinely curious about everyone that I meet. And that lights my fire. There's some people that does not light their fire. There's some people who are like, all right, I got to freaking turn it on here. Let's go. And there's nothing wrong. There's no better or worse, but in those situations, I benefit from the fact that my body gets engaged when I'm around more people and getting to know somebody new. And so I think that's one of the biggest things that I do. And then, I think genuinely just talking to people and asking them about their lives, what's going on with them, what's going on with their work, what's going on with their students, or their careers, and then let's jump into business, right? Like,
exactly.
anytime I hop on a phone call with a prospective client, it's like, oh, how long you been working there? Oh, what do you love about that? Oh, what do you tell me more about that? Oh, that's so cool. I bet you know your way around. You've been there for 30 years, or whatever. Cracking a couple of jokes and taking an interest in their background before we even get into like, oh, well, tell me about this event that you want to talk about. Like let's connect and if I can find a cool similarity, then that's a win, right? Something where every time I see that person, I'm gonna be like, yo, those hamburgers, or whatever.
Well, yeah, I've seen you go into a couple enemy territories where Clemson has just been there. So I'll let everybody know, you went to Clemson, but I've seen you go to a couple schools where Clemson's kind of gone through and done a number on their football team, but they're still friends with you.
Well, I busted. I say it as quickly as I can. I talk about Clemson when I'm in those places. I was like, "Hey, y'all, I went to Clemson. You're welcome." And I think it's just because it's so funny. I spoke at 2 schools within the last month. I spoke at the University of North Dakota, which has one of the best aviation schools in the country, randomly, and their arch rival is Embry-Riddle down in Florida, and they're also, I know, in Arizona, and they're arch rivals, and in the aviation industry, they're both cranking out pretty much the best pilots that are coming out of undergrad today. And so I walked on stage at Embry-Riddle, and I was like, "What's up, friends? How you doing?" I was just up at the University of North Dakota. They say hi, and yeah, right, for sure. But the people automatically like you for that reason, because they could tell that, like, we're having fun, we're making fun of each other, and there's a cool vibe to that, I think.
Well, this will make you smile. I had the University of Miami years ago.
Yeah.
And they asked me to come out before the speech, and they want us to do like some fun, like interactive stuff. So we're doing like Simon Says. And I had this one, I said in the crowd, I'm like, said Simon Says. I was like, all right. It's like, say, say Florida State. I was like, Florida State's the best. And this one guy yelled it out, and I had like 3,000 students like just turn on them dudes. I was like, guess he's out. And everybody's like, was laughing. But like you said, that's just some of the piece that you have to be able to, read the audience and let them know who you are. So I'm going to ask you to do something for me real quick, because I know we weren't planning this, but just to show who you truly are, because I said this gained some, mad love from me when I saw you do it. But would you mind, you can do whatever you want to, but I know you've been known for freestyle and bringing some students up to freestyle with you on stage. Can you give me 30 seconds of just
We couldn't even warn a brother about this, huh?
I know. I got to keep it real. I told people this is unscripted, so. So if you want to talk about airplanes, talk about, how cold it is outside, you want to drop something down about, getting like airline students almost killed.
Wow. Sure. I can.
Okay. Well, wow. Do something about Clemson. That's probably easy for you.
We'll figure it out. Okay, here we go. I got my bar stacking up. No, I'm trying to meet my quota. Your boy got the hoodie on, chilly Minnesota. I'm over here. No, I'm rolling with the livers. It's okay. I'm always repping for the Tigers. Your boy, know I've been the best man here at Clemson, coming with the fast Rams. It's okay. I'll be bitching. My boy all day, hold it down in the kitchen. What's going on? I give it a spank. Who the best speaker out there? My boy Frank. It's all good. We out here on the podcast. Your boy over here spitting rhymes so nasty. All right, past D. I'm coming out here. No, I'll never pass B. It's okay, because I'm out here getting the A's. Your boy over here getting the plays. Oh, yeah. You want to take a look? Hey, check it, everybody. It's my book.
There it is. Nice. So I got a few more questions. Let's say, you know what? That's the first freestyle on my show. So that's going to be, I'm going to have you do my intro when we get this coming out in 2020. But really quick, I know you had your book came out. It's like, it's a leadership book. Tell people what's about the book, and then how did it feel? And like you went from not a speaker to professional speaker to now you are this, this author. You're out there all online with the book. It's got like ratings and all that good stuff. So I mean, how did it feel to write a book?
It felt surreal, right? Like it felt like I wasn't the person who was supposed to be writing the book. In full disclosure, when I had written the book, uh, from that point to like 7 years prior, like in those 7 years before I wrote the book, I had written as many books as I had read. Um, so of one, and
Yep.
so I'm not a voracious reader. I've since found audiobooks, and those have been
Mhm.
a lifesaver for me. I
Yeah.
have ADHD, and so I find reading to be very tedious.
Okay.
It's just not fun, and so audiobooks help me out a lot. But yeah, the book writing process is one of the most fascinating things I put my self-esteem through. I think there were times where I was writing that book and I would write a sentence and I'd be like, oh, shoot, this is going to be quoted until the end of time.
Hmm.
And then most part of the writing process, though, was like, ain't nobody reading this shit, dude. Like, what are you
Hmm.
doing? Why are you writing this? Like, what's going on? Like, is your ego this big that you need to write a book and put your damn face on the cover? Like, where are you at right now, man?
Yep.
And so it was a real push pull. But it is fascinating to see the way people look at you once they realize you've written a book.
Hmm.
Um, and I haven't changed since writing the book, but the way that, especially like corporate audiences get very excited knowing they're bringing in an author.
Yeah.
College audiences think it's cool, but corporate audiences are pretty electrified by it.
Yeah. And then like they read the first page and then that's about it. But yeah, I gotta get the book. They didn't want the signature sometimes more than they even want the book. It's just the case of they got the book, they got a picture with you, you signed it. They're happy they can throw it up on the shelf. So, well, you've talked about the college market, the corporate market. Everybody's been learning a lot here during this interview. And every guest I have on, I always will ask him like, two closing questions. And the questions are, you've been doing the speaking game, for a while now. There's a lot that you've learned. People probably always come up asking you questions, but I told people there's the art of speaking and there's a business. For anybody who's new at this, anybody's trying to get better at speaking, what's one thing about the art of speaking you would share with people if they want to make sure that they are elevating their abilities? And then what's one thing about the business of speaking that you would recommend for people who want to get into the business side?
Yeah. I would say the art of speaking goes back to the relatable delivery that we were talking about before. It's figuring out what your truth is and how your truth can mesh with that audience. And how can you show that to them so they feel like they are seeing you, not seeing some caricature of you. And so that's the biggest thing. And that ultimately comes down to story. If you're not starting your speeches with story, I think you're messing up. I think you need to start with some sort of like connection. It doesn't have to be some crazy, riveting, like heart-wrenching story. It could just be something silly where you're making fun of yourself a little bit or whatnot. But story is the longest form of information delivery that we've had in the history of Homo sapiens, right? And so it's how we've passed on information, and it's a really innate way that all of us know that we like to hear information, and so it's an immediate connection point. And so starting with story helps you get more relatable from the jump. And some of those stories, I think it's important to share your failures on stage just as much as it is to share your successes, because you have to recognize that on stage, you're telling people, you're putting down the lily pads or the planks to get across that river or get across that lake. Your job to put down those next few pieces of the dock so they can continue on that growth to their goal. It's not your job to tell them from the other side, do this. You have to show them the way that works. And so relatability is powerful there. As far as the business goes, this is a part of the business that I'm not the best at. For me, relationship building has always been key. Being kind to people, spending time with people, learning about them well beyond what I'm going to be doing with them. And so that has been a crucial thing of talking to somebody like they are a human being, not talking to somebody like they're a client. I think that's the biggest piece for me. And then the last one is probably just knowing your value and learning your value, and knowing that in the beginning, you got to speak for free or speak for very little and build those chops. But then recognizing where most other speakers are and putting yourself in those ranks, because there's undervaluing you will also hurt you probably more than overvaluing yourself. because people can always negotiate down, but they'll rarely negotiate up.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you've been sharing lots of value here today. For the people who just are really connecting with the information that you're dropping right now, like how do people stay in touch with you? Where can they find you? Website, social media? Maybe you can give out a phone number, but how can they stay in touch?
Yeah, I'm James T. Robo. JamesTRobo.com. James T. Robo on all social media. Your boy looking real cute on Instagram. Let's go. But also, yeah, or just my name, James Robilitta on LinkedIn. Happy to keep in touch with people. I'm also a speaker coach. And so I work with individuals on helping them mind stories. Now, a lot of people get stuck on that. And so, so those are some cool things that I do, brother. And yeah, anywhere. Feel free to email me, James at James T. Robo. We out here.
All right, so we got RoboCop on here. So we got James Robilitta. James, you know, I got to just say thank you for jumping on here. Like I said, I know we've, quote, met once face-to-face. We just connect all the way through social media. Next time I can't even say New York anymore because now you're Minnesota. So next time I'm in Minnesota, you know, maybe we'll hook up at an NSA meeting. You know, we'll definitely hook up, just go hang out or whatever. But, you know, before we let you go home and just get back into, you know, your work day, what's just one thing you'd like to, once again, just tell everybody just to keep them inspired, motivated to go out and just get better at this game called speaking?
One thing to get better at this, your story is good enough.
There it
Your
is.
story is good enough. Wherever you're at right now, you are right where you need to be a speaker. And keep mining those stories.
There it is, ladies and gentlemen. That's James Robilotta. This has been Fresh Takes. Thank you so much, James, and we'll be talking soon.
Thanks for having me, brother.
All right. Let's see.